I kept the visitor logs for 30 years, every name, every date. Every single time someone walked through those doors to see their mother or their father or their spouse. I still have copies of some of them in a box in my closet. 3 decades of evidence that expose the biggest lie families tell themselves. And I'm going to share that evidence with you right now, because you are probably telling yourself the same lie, and you do not have 30 years to figure out the truth. The lie is this: you believe that when you get old and frail and need help, someone who loves you will be there. Your spouse, your children, your family. You believe that because you have been a good person, because you have sacrificed and loved and shown up for others, that showing up will be reciprocated when you need it most. You believe the bonds you have built will hold. I am 92 years old. I ran 3 nursing homes over 30 years. I oversaw the care of thousands of people in the final chapters of their lives. And I am telling you directly, looking into this camera, that you are wrong. Not maybe wrong, not probably wrong, wrong. The math does not support your fantasy. The visitor logs exposed it. And if you do not adjust your expectations and your planning right now, you will discover this truth at the worst possible moment, when you are vulnerable and frightened, and it is too late to do anything about it. Let me tell you what those visitor logs actually showed. In the first 6 months after admission, most residents received regular visits, weekly, sometimes more. The adult children felt guilty. They were trying to convince themselves they had not abandoned their parent. They brought flowers. They sat in the room making awkward conversation. They told themselves this was temporary, that mom or dad would get better and come home. After 6 months, the visits dropped by half. People got busy. They had jobs and children of their own, and problems that seemed more pressing than sitting in a room that smelled like disinfectant, listening to someone repeat the same story for the 3rd time. They started calling instead. Then they stopped calling as often. After 1 year, I would estimate that 80% of our residents saw family once a month or less. Many went months without a single visitor. I am not talking about people who had no family. I am talking about people with multiple children, grandchildren, siblings, people who had spent their whole lives building what they thought were unbreakable bonds. Those bonds broke. Not because the family members were monsters, because life is relentless, and memory is short, and guilt fades faster than you think. I kept those logs because I thought someone should bear witness. Someone should document the truth. Your children love you. I am not saying they do not, but love and presence are not the same thing. Love does not drive 2 hours on a Saturday when there is a soccer game and a birthday party and the car needs an oil change. Love does not sit with you when your mind starts to go and you cannot remember their name. Love does not show up. People show up, and people have limits. Now let me tell you about the ones who did fine, because there were some. There were residents who thrived right up until the end, who had sharp minds and good spirits and died peacefully without that look of bewildered abandonment I saw in so many others. And here is what they had in common. They expected nothing from anyone. I do not mean they were bitter or cynical. I mean they had built lives that did not depend on other people's choices. They had their own money that no one else controlled. They had made their own arrangements for their own care. They had selected their own facility, signed their own papers, and moved in on their own terms. They were not dumped somewhere by overwhelmed children who picked the first place with an opening. They had planned. They had prepared. They had accepted the truth that you are refusing to accept right now. You are going to be alone. Maybe not every day, maybe not completely, but effectively alone in all the ways that matter. And that is not a tragedy, unless you are unprepared for it. I want to talk to the women watching this for a moment. I know this is going to sound old-fashioned, but I spent 3 decades watching what happens to women who let their husbands handle everything. I watched widows come into my facilities who did not know their own bank account numbers, who did not know what medications they were supposed to be taking, who had never paid a bill in their lives because that was his department. And then he died, and they were lost, completely, utterly lost, vulnerable to anyone who wanted to take advantage. And believe me, there is always someone who wants to take advantage. I had a resident named Dorothy, lovely woman, taught piano for 40 years. Her husband, Harold, handled all the finances. When Harold died, Dorothy discovered he had taken out a second mortgage she knew nothing about. The house she thought she owned free and clear had 6 years of payments left. She could not afford them on her Social Security. Her son helped for a while, then stopped. She ended up with us, confused and ashamed, asking me how this had happened to her. She had trusted completely. She had never asked questions, and that trust destroyed her. I am not telling you to distrust your spouse. I am telling you to verify. Know where the money is. Know how to access every account. Know what insurance policies exist and who the beneficiaries are. Know what debts you have. This is not paranoia. This is basic adult responsibility. And if your spouse gets offended by these questions, that tells you something too. Now let me talk about the adult children. I raised one daughter. We are not close. That is mostly my fault. I worked too much, and I was not warm enough, and I made choices I cannot undo. But I see her once a month, and I know she would help me if I truly needed it. I also know I cannot count on that, not because she is a bad person, because I have seen too much. I have seen the devoted daughter who visited every day for 2 years, then got cancer herself and could not come anymore. I have seen the reliable son lose his job and have to move across the country for work. I have seen the grandchildren grow up and have children of their own who needed attention more than the great-grandmother they barely remembered. I have seen family members simply burn out, exhausted by the relentless demands of caring for someone who is never going to get better. And I have seen the other kind too, the ones who showed up when there was money to discuss, the ones who started asking about the will while their mother was still breathing, the ones who fought with their siblings over furniture while their father lay in a hospital bed. I had a resident whose 3 adult children had not spoken to each other in 8 years because of a dispute over their mother's jewelry. She had not even died yet. They were already fighting over her possessions. She could hear them arguing in the hallway. She knew exactly what she meant to them. I am not trying to make you hate your children or suspect them of greed. I am trying to wake you up. Your children are human beings with their own problems and limitations and weaknesses. They may love you deeply. They may also let you down in your moment of greatest need. Both of these things can be true. Planning for the second possibility is not a betrayal of the first. Here is what you need to do, and I am going to be specific because vague advice is useless advice. First, have an attorney who works for you and only you, not your family's attorney, not your spouse's attorney, your attorney. Someone whose legal obligation is to protect your interests, even if those interests conflict with your family's wishes, because they will conflict. I promise you, they will conflict. Second, have a power of attorney document that specifies exactly who can make decisions for you and under what circumstances. Make sure there are checks on that power. Make sure no one person can unilaterally decide to sell your house or move you to a facility. I have seen this go wrong more times than I can count. Third, know your finances completely. Every account, every debt, every policy, every asset. If you are married, this is not your spouse's department. It is both of your departments. If you cannot list every source of income and every monthly expense right now from memory, you have work to do. Fourth, visit nursing homes now while you are healthy and clear-headed. I know that sounds morbid. I know you do not want to think about it. Do it anyway. See what they look like. See what they smell like. See what the residents' faces look like. Then decide if that is where you want to end up, or if you need to make other arrangements. Fifth, talk to your family now about your wishes. Not in vague terms, in specific terms. What do you want done if you cannot make decisions for yourself? What quality of life is acceptable to you? What is not? Get it in writing. Make sure everyone knows, because if you do not decide, someone else will decide for you, and you may not like their decision. Sixth, build a life that does not depend on anyone else's presence for your basic well-being. Have your own friendships. Have your own interests. Have your own reasons to get up in the morning that have nothing to do with your spouse or your children. Because when they are gone, and they will be gone eventually, one way or another, you will need something to live for. I want to tell you about the resident who taught me the most about this. Her name was Vera. She came to us at 87 after her husband died. She had no children, no siblings still living, a few nieces and nephews scattered around the country who sent cards at Christmas. By every measure, she should have been the loneliest person in the building. She was not. She was the happiest. She organized a book club that met every Tuesday. She learned to use email at 89 so she could write to her nieces. She played cards with the staff during their breaks. She told me once that she had spent her whole life preparing to be alone because she had watched her mother die alone and bitter, and she had decided that would not be her. She said the secret was simple. Expect nothing from anyone. That way, everything you receive is a gift. She was not cold about it. She was not closed off. She loved people. She was deeply kind. But she had built her happiness on a foundation that did not require anyone else's participation. When people showed up, wonderful. When they did not, she was fine. Vera died at 94, peacefully, in her sleep. I was there the next morning when they found her. She had a book on her nightstand and a half-finished crossword puzzle on her bed. She had been living right up until she stopped. That is what I want for you. That is why I am making this recording at 92 years old, sitting in my small apartment, talking to a camera I barely know how to operate, because I have seen the alternative. I have seen people die waiting for someone to walk through the door. I have seen people spend their last years feeling abandoned and betrayed and confused about how their lives ended up this way. It does not have to be that way, but you have to prepare now, not next year, not when you retire, now, while you are healthy, while you can think clearly, while you still have choices. Your family may be there for you. I hope they are. But hope is not a plan. And I did not spend 30 years keeping those visitor logs to watch you make the same mistake everyone else made. You are probably alone right now, watching this video. No one else is in the room with you. Get used to that feeling. Learn to be at peace with it. Build a life where that is okay, because someday that is going to be your permanent reality, and the only question is whether you will be ready. I do not mean to frighten you, or maybe I do, a little, because the appropriate response to the truth is sometimes fear, and the appropriate response to fear is preparation. Be afraid, then do something about it. That is all I ask. I kept those logs for 30 years. I saw the truth. Now you have seen it too. What you do next is up to you.